All right, looks like everybody's taking the seats. So we'll get started here. Welcome to the 2016 Chickasha Candidate Forum. Very, very excited to have you all here. When we kind of started this, I got about a week out and I realized that I had not promoted it at all. And so I'm really just glad that you guys took the time in the short notice that you kind of had to come out here. This is a big deal. I think it's best in a democracy when people are informed. And we're going to try and give you a little bit of information tonight. These guys will be up for election, if you haven't heard, on March 1st. That's the Chickasha municipal election. We'll have Ward 1 and the mayoral race. We have all of those candidates here tonight. And if we could just give them a quick hand for taking the time out today. I was really impressed. You guys are taking time out of their busy schedules to come here and to see you and see voters. But March 1 is the election. It's also the presidential primary. A little bit concerning though, because if you think about it, if they don't get those ballots straight, we're a couple of sheep separated from Mayor Trump, which is kind of scary. But or not, or maybe it's great for some of you who enjoy Trump. But anyways, we're going to get started. Really, tonight is about you guys. I've got questions. George Plummer, the voice of Grady County, is here to help me and to run this because he knows a lot more about this than I do. But we've got questions, but we want to hear your questions. We want to hear the citizens' concerns. Because there's a reason you guys are out here tonight, and we want to hear why. Please, if you do speak, George will be going around with the wireless microphone that I got here in front of me. There it is. Raise your hand. A couple things. We will try and get to everybody. Can't really, I don't know if we can promise to do that. I think we can. Looks like there's a decent crowd here tonight. If somebody takes your question, try and think of another one. If you can't, just relax. We've got 2 of these to go, so I'm sure you'll have plenty of time to get your question in. Keep your question to about a minute. Each of the candidates, I've instructed to kind of keep their answers to about a minute and a half-ish. But other than that, this is pretty informal. We just want to have a good conversation tonight and have a good time with other couple of things. So,
is anybody here for the town hall meeting? Because that's here too.
Please stay.
So, anyway, Tom Cole is in the building. Congressman Tom Cole with another meeting, but that's another place. But it looks like you're all here for City Council. So again, thanks for coming in.
I wasn't already under pressure. So we'll get started. These are the Ward 1 council candidates. There are 4 of them, as you see. Who we have up here, in no particular order, Joe Green. Raise your hand. There's Joe Green. Mark Keelan. Pretty much clearly see Mark. That trademark jumper there. Jerry Pittman is there on the end. And Mr. Larry Walson right here. So candidates, we'll get started. I want to let you each have a chance to give a quick opening statement to the crowd. And we'll start and just kind of go from Larry on down to Jerry and go for it.
My name is Larry Watson. I'm a retired Lieutenant Colonel, Army. I've lived in Chickasha for 18 years. I previously was on the City Council back in 2004 and was called up for deployment in 2005 and had to resign. So now that I've retired and I've had a little bit of time to have a little fun, enjoy myself, I'm ready to start to get back involved with the City of Chickasha. And we've got a lot of things to look at and work on and to improve the quality of life here in the City of Chickasha. But I think we're headed in the right directions and we got the right leadership and the right people. I think we'll be all right.
I'm Joe Green. I'm a lifetime resident of Chickasha. My background is in banking, 37 years. I am like Larry said, he was a previous councilman. I have also served on the council a few times. I counted 5 mayors and 4 city managers over the time that I've served. So, thank you.
Okay. Mark Keeling, we moved here in 1968. My dad retired from the Air Force. Played Little League ball here for the Red Sox, if there's anybody that old. Stayed here about a year, moved to the Friend community, went all the way to the 8th grade. Then I went to Amber Pocasset, graduated in 1979. Been in Grady County ever since. Truck driver, now I live in town in Chickasha, Oklahoma, and I'm making it my home, so I really enjoy here. I decided it's time to do something and try to be part of the community and give back and try to get a few changes.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Pittman. I'm a career journalist, 45 years in the newspaper business. Lived in Oklahoma for 23 years, Chickasha since 2005. Over the course of that newspaper career, I've considered myself a watchdog for the public, working to keep government accountable, transparent, and accessible. The main reason I'm running is that in my time here, I've served on the chamber board. I served 7 years on the Public School Foundation, 2 terms as president, and I look at this as another opportunity to serve the community that my wife and I have learned to call home. My main platform is that government must adequately fund core services such as public safety, streets, water, and waste management, and look to build private sector partnerships to pay for amenities such as parks and recreational facilities. I think that's very important that the community have an investment in those type of quality of life issues, but at all costs, the core services must be funded.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Before we move it over to you, the audience, I would like to kind of just warm up here with a little bit of a question, if that's all right, and I think everybody would be okay with it, because I do want to talk about something that we're all pretty familiar with, which is the water. It remains to be an issue. I know the city has done some things in the past, and certainly has looked into the scope of the problem. For example, in 2014, our former city manager said that the pipe that goes out to Fort Cobb, to replace that pipe, which has leaks, is very old, would cost about $150 million. This is a big, big project that no doubt a council will need to undertake at some point. So I would like to ask each of you, and we're gonna go the other way and start with Jerry and kind of move down to Larry here. Why does the water continue to be an issue in your opinion? And what will be your focus on water if you are elected? We'll start with Jerry.
It continues to be an issue because some people won't let it die. This is a problem that took that took 100 years to develop. The council developed a plan to start systematically fixing the problem. Everyone knew from the beginning it wasn't going to happen overnight, but it's going to take several $1 million to do it, and we just got to stay the course and do through the capital improvement funds to designate a healthy chunk of that each year to those water projects, and there you have it.
Okay. Yeah, water's near and dear to my heart. You probably know this. The water issue was started in 1982 when they started taxing the citizens to correct the water problem. A lot of promises have been made since 1982 till today. I really believe the effort that's been put into it is very minimal. That will be probably my platform, water. We understand it's a $200 million fix. I've heard all different numbers. That will be the priority. Any extra money that we can allow to go to it or future taxes needs to go to water. We got to correct that. I'll be a watchdog on it. I'll be there. I don't know how much strength or pull I'll have, but if I'm elected, I'll sit there and let them know. Water, flooding, streets, infrastructure. Bottom line, it's an infrastructure need that needs to be attacked.
These gentlemen are all right. We've had a water problem. I know that under not the current city manager, the previous city manager, they're replacing some clear wells at the water production plant. Now, I don't know the status of that because I'm not currently on the council, but I'm told that that will alleviate a lot of the sediment that is in the water, the discoloration that you see from time to time. And we also, I say we, the city also went with a new wastewater and water treatment company. When they built the water treatment plant out by the ballparks in 1978 or 79, we had the same company that has operated until this past July. And the current city manager went with another company, and they found a lot of deficiencies that have been brought to the city's attention that were maintenance problems by the prior company. So I don't know how that will factor in, but it couldn't do anything but help.
Yeah, I agree with them. Water is a vital resource that we all need to, take baths, drink, put out fires. The fire department needs, and we've got to do something to rectify the water problem because, promises have been made over all the years to fix it, but yet we haven't really come up with a solid plan of action to implement repairing and replacing the water lines, just like anything else. You got to change the oil in your car. You got to change the tires. You got to get maintenance done. You got to do maintenance on the water system from the source where we get it at, Fort Cobb Lake. We got to work with them and make sure we're getting good quality water to begin with, and make sure it's good quality water when it gets to our house and in our, because hard water is hard on your clothes. That's a proven fact. Your clothes wear out faster, so and it's an EPA problem. So we can't be wasteful with the water, and so we got to find other sources to get our water. So water is a big need, and it's part of the infrastructure problems that we have today. And I think we've started making progress in the last few years to rectify the problems, but it's just going to take a longer term to get it done.
Thank you, Jim. Right now, now that we've kind of started up and got a little bit warmed up, I'd like to see if we can get some audience input, and if any of you have questions, please raise your hand. George will be going around, and he'll do the mic. Try and keep the questions to about a minute, and see if you can't just keep a question in there. I know that you may have some complaints and issues and things like that, but let's turn it into a question and see if we can't get it. So, anybody who's first.
Yeah, I have a question about public transit in Chickasha. There is no public transit, and I would like to see if there's a city bus system or anything planned for public transit in Chickasha.
All the cameras. First one wants to take a crack at that one.
Is the county transit not serving the needs of?
No.
Not at all?
No. Well, we have the Wichita Valley Transit, but it's horrible.
That's
It's very limited in its capabilities. Yeah, you're right. And we do. I agree. We do need some public because we have a lot of elderly citizens that can't drive and need that transportation, and that's something that we, as a council, we need to sit down and talk about as far as.
I would actually like to have it open at the same time as the hospital is now open when it's rebuilt.
All right. Any other candidates want to weigh in on public transportation? No? All right, next question. Really? Good, let me reason my bag of tricks here.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Well, we'll get one done. Oh, we've got one down.
I got one, okay.
I am 89 years old, and I've lived in Chickasha off and on most of that time. And water has always been the problem, and it was always getting better. It hasn't got better yet. I don't know how many bombs have been voted. I don't know how many polls have been taken since I was a child. And always it's getting better, and this solution will be the solution. It never has. I am using bottled water even for my cat. It has not gotten better.
Yeah.
What is the essential problem? Is there not enough water? Is it not enough purification? What is the obstacle?
You can have the purest water at the water plant that you can have, but if the pipelines bringing it to your house, the water lines bringing it to your house, are not maintained and kept cleaned and repaired or updated, then that's where your problems come. So it's not,
It's the delivery
the
system.
delivery system. It's the water lines that's
It's
the
the
problem.
water lines.
The water
All
lines.
right, that's the only problem.
Yeah, because you can pass.
That's one of the-
We've had water passed at the treatment plant, but yet, brown water comes into my bathtub. I don't want to take a bath in it. I don't even want to take a shower in it. So, I don't blame you.
Well, I wouldn't take a bath in it.
We've got to do, but it's the water lines. It's the biggest problem right now that we've got to repair. Just like anything else, you got to maintain. We got some water lines that are 50 years old.
So it's my water line's problem.
Not yours. It's
Well,
the whole city.
let me,
And even from Fort Cobb Lake, we've got problems. So
I think Mr. Pittman had.
Well, to answer your question, it's all of the above. I mean, you start at Fort Cobb. It's my understanding that the city of Chickasha, in the pecking order, has had, but I think it's been resolved somewhat, the intake pipe was where there was the most sediment, for lack of a better word, nastiest water. But I believe there's been negotiations, and that problem has been resolved or will be resolved soon. And as I said earlier, is that this problem didn't happen overnight. And in my opinion, the city does have a plan to replace this, but it's not going to happen tomorrow. I mean, we're not going to all wake up in the morning and have clean water. But I think it's unfair to blame this administration and this past 3 or 4 councils for problems that have been in the making for 75 years.
I'm fully aware of that. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm simply asking for information and what solutions are foreseen.
Mr. Heath.
Yes.
Because I'm using bottled water like it's going out of stock.
Thank you for asking that question. We have pipes that are 80 and 100 years old that go through the city. When I spent time in Iraq, we would take the old water and our treatment would turn it into really good drinking water. So I believe we produce good water coming out of the plant. It's the pipes. It's not a pretty fix. It's not an easy fix. It's an expensive fix. But the solution is get those pipes replaced and correct that problem. And that, in my opinion, will take care of our water situation for good drinking water.
Enthusiasm, being exerted right now as they are working on the drains and the streets. Oh, I'm impressed with all of that. I truly am. I'd like to see that much enthusiasm,
Yeah.
effort, and expense going for the water lines.
I agree. Totally agree.
I mean,
To,
I love the streets, gee, it's great. I ride a tricycle, I get to cruise all over town and look at how the changes are coming about. And I'm so pleased with the streets. But I'm so disappointed in the water we still haven't got there. So I'm going to have to put a filter situation into my house. In fact, that might be the solution.
Mr. Green, do you have one last thing?
well,
This is what
I didn't want to interrupt her. What Jerry said about the intake, the previous city manager was here 4 years, but about 2/3 of the way through that time was during the drought, and they were having to monitor the level of Fort Cobb on a daily basis to make sure that the water level didn't get below the intake and get air in the line, which would mess up with the pumps. So I don't recall exactly how much Mr. Fairburn spent, but they extended that line further out so that
I read about
the,
the paper.
right, the water level would not, of course, a drought is a drought, but and there'll be another one, but at least they extended it and deepened it.
So they're not pumping air.
Well, so the level wouldn't come down and conceptually, possibly draw air. Because the lake got very low. It was down within a foot at one time when I was in City Hall. It was within a foot of the big intake. Now that's been fixed. That's what Jerry alluded to, and that's correct. But that's just the delivery system that brings it to us. That has nothing to do with, like Mark said, the pipes that have 80, 100 years old. I mean, that's a very accurate statement.
Thank you, Candace. And by the way, I love your enthusiasm. It's fantastic. I love your enthusiasm. It's fantastic, and we need more people like you. However, because of time, I would like to ask that try and keep it to a question and a quick follow-up. Like I said, I'd love to hear from people, but we will try and get to everybody. But thank you, ma'am, very much for your question.
You have to realize they.
We've got one. Yes, we've got one in the back over here. We can get there.
We talked about where it's come from and the issues with that and the issues with getting from the plant to our houses. And we I think we already know that. We already all know that. We've known it for a long time. I've lived in Chickasha for 12 years, and I've known it for a long time. But I want to know when. That lady up there said she's almost 90 years old and it's been a problem for all that time. So when? When are they going to start working on it? Are we going to see progress?
I think
Okay.
Mr. Keeney comes in on this with the earliest, and we'll start with him real quick.
Okay, I've started, water's been, my issue. 8 years ago, I talked about water. Let's fix it. You have to have water for a city to survive. I've said that forever. So when we were having taxes for like USAO scholarships, YMCA, I would always say no. That money can be used for water, where that can be fixing those pipes. I believe we all know it's the infrastructure, it's the pipes. It's not a pretty street, it's not pretty lights, but it's a cancer that has to be taken care of. Let's take care of it. So I'm the candidate that has been saying this from day one. I can't promise you I can do it, but I can promise you every meeting I will bring the water solution up. And if there's a tax comes up, I will probably disagree with it unless it's for water. Infrastructure first, the bells and whistles second.
It still comes down, it's an enormous amount of money. And I think our annual budget, I want to say, and I could miss this, George, 11 million a year, the budget for it, okay, $11 million. If we took every penny of our budget for 20 years and not pay anything else, that would be the only way you'd pay for that in short order. And it'd take 20 years at that. I mean, yes, you can allocate portions of it, but it's like everyone up here has said, it is a long-term fix. And there is no shortcut to doing it right. And it would be block by block by block by block. And there's just not the money there to do and get, like you asked, when are we going to see some improvement? I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know. I really don't.
Well, I think we're seeing some. It's
Well, yeah,
progressively
but
getting
but her question was, when are we going to see
Yeah.
progress?
And one other issue is that even if miraculously all the pipes from Fort Cobb to Chickasha, from Chickasha to the street corner were fixed, the age of the housing in Chickasha, I mean, I don't know what the percentage would be, but a large percentage, if pristine water was delivered to the curb, it wouldn't be when you get it in your house, because you've got 75 and 80-year-old pipes from the street to the house. So, I mean, it's a problem. I think it's being addressed, and you know, I'm open to other solutions. But to say that there's nothing being done is just a grievous wrong.
Well, and also, the city delivers that water to your meter. But if it's like Jerry said, if it's an older pipe, it's going to be the homeowner's responsibility to pay from the meter to the house. And not everyone has that ability on the day that the better water comes. So, I mean, it's a multi-edged sword.
Yeah.
Well, I understand you already had your say on this one. I apologize, Mr. Gillis, but I tell you what, obviously water is a very, very big issue. I think we spent about 20 minutes talking about it just now. If we could just kind of go on to some different things. I know the water is the number one thing. We spend a lot of time on it, but is there anybody who has a question that does not relate to water or anything else? Over here.
Yeah, I'm a newer person to Oklahoma and to Chickasha. I've only been here about 6 years. And I've got a problem in that every time something comes up that needs funding, they put it on the sales tax. The sales tax is the most aggressive tax that you can possibly use to fund things. What opportunities do we have as a city or to go to our state representatives to change this so that we have other types of revenue that can come in to take care of these problems and bring the sales tax back into line to what it should be?
We'll start with Mr.
Well, I think you hit it on the head. The legislature will have to allow cities to assess property tax. From what I understand, Oklahoma is the only state that municipalities cannot assess property tax. That's the domain of county government in Oklahoma. So, I mean, that's the problem there.
Would any of you be willing to make a proposal through the council to approach the state to
I would have no
I
problem.
don't have a
doing
problem
that.
with approaching, but the thing about it is, legislature would have to change the regulation on how much the cities get, because that 8.5% or 9% sales tax that we pay, the city only gets maybe 2 or 3% of that.
4%.
4% now?
the resolution now that we get up to them to let them know that we're not happy.
Well, yeah, but look at the state budget.
Yeah, but
Yeah, they're in trouble
okay,
too, so.
okay. Now let's look at the other side of that coin. You know who's going to be the first people to squawk? Are the county commissioners?
Yeah.
Because they get all the ad valorem tax now, and that would take away the funding for the county, of which we're part of. So that,
It would not. All
yes,
I'm
sir.
saying is,
Well,
you would have a
they're
different
getting,
funding method.
but they're getting the ad valorem taxes under your house, my house, his house.
They would continue to do that.
No. What you just proposed was to change where we could, and Jerry said, where we would get the ad valorem tax.
No. What I'm saying is
Did I misunderstand you?
to bring about ways to bring a different type of tax to cover these things.
Mr. Keel's been itching to go on this.
Yeah, we have the taxes there. You meet the need. If there's a need that needs to be fixed, and it's a $2 million fix, and it has to, you, first of all, you find out what caused that problem. Like Chickasha, 600,000, my understanding, kind of in the hole. We need to find out why. You correct that problem. Then let's say we're $1 million short here or there. I would like to see us, if we had to do a tax, we meet that need for that $1 million, $2 million, and we pay that debt. We get that debt paid down. Then it drops off because there's more other needs. That's gone. But unfortunately, our taxes in these communities do not disappear. They're forever. So meet the need, find out what caused it, take care of the problem, the root problem, and you say, okay, we got to fix it. Do the tax, get it over with, drop off, and then there's going to, how many knows USAO's enrollment's down quite a bit? I would think maybe they're going to come knocking on our doors for tax money. Well, if we keep tying this tax up for 20 years, 10 years, and it never goes away, how are we going to help them? Meet the need, let it drop off, and go to another need. That's the solution.
But as we all know, that sales tax revenues are down because of the lower oil prices. I mean, that's not all of it, but it's down, what'd you say, George, 13% from a year, where are you, George? We did like 13% for like, when you did December, it was down 13% from a year ago December. Well, I mean, the city only has five incomes. It has water, sewer, sanitation, funeral plots, and there's a fifth one that escapes me. That's the only revenue we have other than sales tax. We're sales tax dependent. I mean, I'm sorry?
Franchise tax.
We don't get franchise tax. That's state. State gets franchise tax. There is a fifth. It's a small, sir? Well, that's
Generally
earmarked.
not paid for
Yeah.
by local.
That's right. That's earmarked for.
It may not be paid for by local, but it's still income to the city.
Oh, no, and that,
But
there is that tax on the ballot for April 5th.
Well, that's different.
I'm sorry?
But you're already getting a certain percentage of.
It raises it from 5% to 8%.
I would have to intervene here because it is getting to a little bit of back and forth. I do apologize, but actually, because you brought up because it's one of taxes, I would like to ask this real quick. April the 5th, Chickasha goes to the polls again on a special election for a sales tax. It's the 732nd sales tax, the one that currently goes to economic development. What they want to do is they want to take that money, switch it to the general fund, and raise hotel motel tax, which residents cannot pay, but people from out of town can pay, from 5% to 8% to make up for the economic development. So candidates, what are your feelings on this tax, on this move, this attempt by the city to fill a $600,000 hole in its general fund? And if you are against it, how would you propose the city instead fill that hole in the general fund? And I want to start with Larry.
I'm for the tax. I think that increasing the hotel tax and people from, coming in and businesses need help with the economic development. So our tax dollars shouldn't actually be going to pay for economic development. I've had some concerns. I understand we've got a new lady that's in charge of economic development. She's starting to make some strides, but we were stagnant for quite a long time as far as the economic development. Where that money was going, I don't know, but I was very disappointed in the use of that money myself, because I thought we could use it for better things, especially the general fund, and fund economic development other ways.
I'll go to Mr. Keeling next because I know he has some opposite feelings.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be against it. For 15 years, we have had the EDC tax. And I don't believe I voted for it when it first came out, but it was we lost some factories here. So they tried to start that EDC to get, a foot in the door. But prior to that, we were getting like $100,000 a year for EDC, and we were bringing in factories. Our companies was coming in. I'll go back to when we voted for it. We tried it. We did it for 5 years. Tom Cole has statements saying we need to do the EDC. Ron Justice, we need to do the EDC. Joe Dorman, they all said we need to do the EDC. I probably would have voted for it. But they also said if it doesn't produce any fruits, let it go. I'm just simply asking, where's that factory and the high-paying jobs that they said it would bring? It ran its course. It didn't produce. Now it wants to go to the general funds. I bring back to the tax. I want to find out why we're $600,000 in the hole, correct that problem, and if there's a shortfall, then take that tax and meet that $600,000. If it's a $600,000 hole, do that tax to correct.
But if you defeat that tax on April the 5th, that ship is sailed, Mark.
Okay. What I would do, I would make it for that need. Correct it, let it drop off, because there's going to be other needs. 15 years, the EDC tax never went away, and it didn't produce anything. This same tax will not go away. Meet the need, knock it off, and there's going to be another need, and then we attack that need. Thank you.
I'll get to you in a minute, Jerry, just because I know you have spoken, and we'll go to you. I do want to ask, so the shopping center that's moving on right now, and Word Industry is supposed to be moving in, that came as a result of economic development. Is that not progress?
Okay. Back in the day, your Chamber of Commerce and your realtors were the ones that would bring in business. They did that. The EDC, and I'm happy. Billy Sims, I'm happy that stuff comes in. But EDC said factories, high-paying jobs. That's how it was, promoted. Okay. Jobs. I'm a truck driver. Those places go everywhere in the United States. Where they can make money, that's where they're going to go.
Jerry.
The alternative, you talk about the $600,000 shortfall and, plug it with the tax. Again, that ship is going to sail if we don't approve it. The alternatives, we were at a meeting this afternoon where water wasn't your number one priority. Your number one priority was public safety, because the police department, the fire department will be strapped. Just some bad alternatives. And 7/32 of a cent in the general fund, and then putting the economic development burden on out-of-town people, which 8% hotel motel tax is very small compared to most cities.
Do I get to respond if he brought my name up? I think so.
30.
Real quick. Infrastructure. Police department, infrastructure. Fire department, infrastructure. These are infrastructure. I brought water, infrastructure. So, no, I'm not like picking winners and losers. Infrastructures, I am picking. Thank you.
I was told by the prior EDC manager, just 2 points, that in the 5 years he was here, he made 66 dog and pony presentations to prospective companies and got 0 new businesses out of it. But as a result of that don't hold me to this, $3.7 million that was in that EDC fund, that was just money sitting there for economic development if someone came. And I was on the council when this happened. We made $1.5 million loan, not a grant, a loan, to the shock absorber plant, whatever it's called now, to put a roof on that building, which kept the jobs. And they paid that, it was a 7-year loan, and they paid that back in about 3 years in total. So having that cash available to help someone locally, not give it to them, loan it to them. Help Arvin Meritor, I think that's what they're calling it, Arvin Meritor, to put a roof on their building, and that's more than 300 jobs.
So would you be in favor of
I'm sorry?
the measure, the 732nd tax?
Since it's paid, well, I agree with it in as much that it's paid by people who come to Chickasha and not by you or me, unless we have relatives and we have to put them in the motel if we can't take them to our house. So it's paid by visitors to our city. It does not impact those of us who live here. You go to Dallas, not a good example, their hotel tax is 14%. I mean, but it's paid by me visiting Dallas if I go. It's the same thing here. So it does not affect us here because we're not paying it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
And one of the big problems is, infrastructure, especially our water and our streets. You can't just spend $400,000 or $500,000 a year, mill down 2 inches and relay 2 inches of asphalt. You're only going to get maybe 2 or 3 miles a year, and we've got, more than 30 miles of city streets. You can't keep up. You've got to be able to have enough money to maintain, and we never had a maintenance program.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. We do need to move on. We are running a little bit low on time for this forum. I do want to take time, if we can get one more question in from the audience, if there is one, and we'll then get some closing remarks from the candidates.
Okay, I've got a quick question that I don't think involves any money. Maybe an issue you're not familiar with. We have tornadoes here. At the present time, the only official tornado shelter that I know of is in the hospital basement. Let me tell you, you haven't lived till you go to the hospital basement during a tornado warning, and there are people and there are animals trying to get in down there while the nurses are trying to move patients down there. It seems to me that there are buildings around, some of which the city owns, that could be opened up for people who live in mobile homes, people who don't have tornado shelters. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. I don't know why the fire station out here on 16th and Country Club, at one time, it used to be a shelter, but then they closed that down. So we've got to find more spread out places for shelters, because not everybody can afford to get a storm shelter put in their backyard.
There are buildings in the city that are accessible during the day. One of the problems is in the evening when they're not staffed of, who would be there to open them. But that's been discussed. And I think even our own Senator Ron Justice, there's also a liability issue, but it may have even passed, I'm not sure, but has fought for legislation to remove the liability to someone that opens their building in the case of a storm. But that's a point well taken.
Okay. Yeah, I would utilize every resource, and I would make arrangement. You have somebody to open the doors at night. It's an easy fix. If we have the facilities, and the storms are coming, you have that person sit with it, and then you open up the doors. You do the best you can. You utilize our resources.
Anything from you, Mr. Green?
No.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, candidates, I will now allow you to do some closing statements since we're about running up on 45 minutes here. So I will actually start with Mr. Green go.
Sure. Well, the reason I didn't mention earlier why I'm running, I am semi-retired, and I have the time to devote, and you get out of it what you put into it. And I feel like my previous experience lets me hit the ground running the first day. There's no learning curve, if you will, trying to understand the budget, the city manager form of government, and the problems of the city. I've lived here my whole life. I understand, don't know them all, and I don't have all the answers, but I know where to go to get the answers to the questions that I'm asked. And I'm very readily available. So I asked for your consideration on March 1st.
Mr. Smith?
Just briefly, if you want somebody that will come on the council and be open to ideas and to explore all options and not immediately say no, then I'm your guy. I love this community. I think I can make a difference, help make a difference. So anyway, I'd appreciate your support on March 1st, or if you vote early, February 25th, 26th, and 27th at the election board. And if you want a yard sign, my beautiful daughter is back there. Thank you.
Mr. Healy?
Yeah, and if you want somebody on the city council that's not afraid to say no, I'm your guy. I will stand up for taxes and infrastructures and fairness, common sense. I know that phrase is used all the time, but a lot of this is common sense. There will be tough decisions. There's probably a lot of people on there now that will be able to educate me, but I have a lot to bring to the table that can educate them. I've been around, traveled, I won't say the world, but been around a lot. Truck driver for years. I've seen a lot of cities, a lot of infrastructures. I've been doing this for 8 years, studying, researching. I do have 8 years of solid research and knowledge on this. I will bring a lot to the table, and I would ask for your vote on this coming election, March 1st.
And Mr. Watson?
Well, I'm fully retired, so, but yeah, I spent 8 years in the banking business and then another 12 years in the asphalt paving business before I got called up to active duty in 2002. My wife was born and raised here in Chickasha. I lived here for 18 years, and unfortunately I got called away after being elected and serving 1 year. But I've got a lot of leadership skills. I've got a lot of knowledge about infrastructure, maintenance, repair, how to keep things up, and that's one of our biggest downfalls is we haven't really maintained or updated things. Just found out today too that our 911 system is about out of date. So there's a lot of things that we have not properly taken care of that need to be taken care of. And I want to go to work for you because that's what we do. City council is, we work for you. So vote for me and I'm going to work for you.
All right, thank you all, gentlemen, your Ward 1 council candidates, ladies and gentlemen. All right, now we've got the mayoral candidate portion of our candidate forum here tonight. Just real quick, your mayoral candidates are, in no particular order over here, Mr. Michael Chambon, Tom Rose, and incumbent current mayor Hank Ross. All right, candidates, just like the last time, we're going to give you a chance to give opening statements. We'll start, kind of go down this way, so we'll start with Mr. Chambon.
I'm Michael Chambon. I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm a father of two. I'm fiscally conservative, and I like to consider myself pretty libertarianish.
Mr. Rose.
I'm Tom Rose, and most of you have probably seen my flyers around town. My parents, or my grandfather, came to Chickasha in 1909. I grew up on a farm about 4 miles west of Chickasha, or west of 29th Street, out past the Weaver farm. We moved to town when I was in grade school, and I graduated from Chickasha High School, went off to college, and didn't live here for almost 40 years. While I was gone, I served 22 years in the military. I opened my own business and did that for 10 years, sold it, and returned back to Chickasha because my wife wanted to be back near her family. And since I've been back, I've been very active in the city. I was on the CASA board of directors. I've been on Historical Society Board. I've been on the Chamber of Directors. I've worked with EDC, and so I've been very active in the EDC in the last 3 years, kind of behind the scenes. And I've written a few letters to the editor and made a few appearances before the council, and so several people approached me and asked me if I would consider running for mayor. And that's why I'm here.
Mayor Ross.
Okay, I'm Hank Ross, and my grandfather came in 1913, so our family's been here almost a little bit over 100 years. My grandfather harvests mistletoe off the Washita River to get enough money together to buy a seed company in the early 20s, which today is Ross Seed and Grain. So I grew up in a family business. My father ran that business after he returned from the war, and so that's been our business for these years. So I grew up here. I left Chickasha. I'm an undergraduate from Oklahoma State, an MBA from Oklahoma City University, and I ran hospitals for 15 years. I jokingly say I'm a recovering hospital administrator. And I've run organizations as large as 5 states and 35 facilities. And then we came back to Oklahoma. My parents were getting elderly. We wanted to be closer to my parents. And I was vice president of post-acute operations with Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma City. And my wife and I were living in Edmond. We had 3 small children. And she turned to me at one time, and Allison standing there, there's my wife back there, I forgot to introduce her, I'm sorry. But she turned to me and she says, I want our kids to know not every house has a 3-car garage. And so we wanted to move out of Edmond. I said, where do you want to go? She goes, Chickasha or El Reno. And so we chose Chickasha. We started a healthcare company, Ross Healthcare. And I'm telling you, today is the best decision we ever made. Our kids were raised in this community. They have a sense of purpose. They understand small town values. They're not a number on the board. People know who they are. I have one who's in graduate school in Minnesota, one who's at Oklahoma State University, and one who's a junior in high school. I create jobs. I create businesses. I own a couple of companies. We employ hundreds of people across the state. I'm proud of that. I know how to make a payroll. I know the risk and reward values of owning a business. I served 14 years in the Air National Guard. I took a tour in Desert Storm for 9 months. So when I came back to Chickasha, I'm a person who doesn't stand on the sidelines. I want to make a difference. And so I got involved through boards and commissions and a multitude of those. I became a councilman for 3 years. I've been mayor for 6 years. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor Ross. Justin.
You know, we've all been very successful, but I've been fired once. And
How many? One time?
one time I got fired.
Twice.
And well, you know, my wife Mary's over here. She's from a small town out in West Texas called Sundown, kind of like Verdon and Alec, you know, very small town. And her father was a farmer, and they grow a lot of cotton out in that part of the country, 5 million bales a year. And her father was a farmer, and he grew cotton out there. And so Mary has.
I apologize, Mr. Levine. Keep this brief.
She has 9 sisters and 3 brothers, and they all worked on the farm. And so her father started this family reunion every year, and everybody had to get together, and that's been going on for about 35 years now. And so we've been married 8 years. The second year after we were married, my brother-in-law started having me deliver all the food down for the reunion, and because we had to stay in another little town for about 35 miles away. And so I'd have to pick up the food and take it down there. And I did that for the next 4 or 5 years.
We do need to get some questions.
Yeah, just 4 or 5 years. And then 2 years ago, he fired me. And I don't let him forget that my brother-in-law fired me the only time I've ever been fired in my life.
Thank you. All right. That's hard to follow up. like to start with something a little lighthearted that, well, it's lighthearted for some. I don't know if it's lighthearted for others. We need to tackle real quick the goose in the room. Recently, the city of Chickasha announced plans to attempt to rid Shannon Springs Park of some geese that they say are tearing up some grass, for lack of a better term, defecating on the sidewalks, and they would like to see them gone through humane ways. The response, at least on Facebook for us, was insane. People really love those geese. So, candidates, starting with Mr. Chambon, working your way down. Just real quick, is the city right, or should Chickasha stick with its perimeter code?
Leave the geese alone. And this is a simple thing. And I understand Mr. Ross had made a comment last night on Facebook, and I understood where he was coming from. The city's worried about someone getting hurt, and not only that, like he said, they're defecating. They're micturating everywhere. I get that. What do we do when they micturate on our cars? Do we run them off? I mean, honestly, leave them alone. Plain and simple. Lawton had this problem a few years ago. How many of y'all remember whenever they had the issue with the prairie dogs at Lawton? Does anybody remember that? They gopher gassed them. What happened? Somebody from I think it was one of the animal rights organizations turned them into the state. Then that's opened a whole new ball game for the city of Lawton. Leave them alone. Plain and simple.
Because you were mentioned in that, we'll give it to you, Mayor Ross, next.
Well, one of the problems with the geese.
Mayor Ross.
Oh, sorry.
You know, I have a lot of strong opinions on some things, and I'm not sure the geese are one of them. But I'll just say this, that we do what citizens ask us to do. And as many supporters of the geese in the room, we have as many people call us, and they can't run on our paths because of all the defecation from the birds, and they eat our grass. And they eat our grass, the soil rolls into the lake, and it hurts our fish, and it hurts our turtles. So I'm not a geese expert. We've been told there's some ways to alleviate some of these issues, but I think we need to keep our parks clean and the appearance of our parks positive. And when you go out to the park and you're harassed by geese and ducks, and people are concerned about that, I think it's maybe something the city should address.
And Mr. Rose.
Well, I see the geese as a problem too. First of all, we have a lot of small children out there walking around, and if you've ever been bit by a goose, which my wife has in the park there, it's very painful. It's worse than a dog bite. And so there is some danger involved with all the geese being there. So I think it's in the best interest of the park to have the geese removed, if that's possible, without harming the geese.
There's that out of the way. Next, I'd like to see if there are any audience questions. I know there were some of you wanted to ask, or if one candidate's question get a chance, so we can kind of start with that. Is there anybody right now who's got a question for any of the mayoral candidates? This man right here.
Just curious.
Wait, the mic's over here.
In the last session, they were talking about the taxes that never go away, the sales tax. Now, isn't all this kind of budgeted where, okay, we're going to have this sales tax, we figure this much money, so if the sales tax is still there, where'd all that extra money go? And another quick question on that, talking about bringing business in. 5, 6 years ago, there was a company that wanted to come in and build rail cars here in town, out by where the ballparks are. And they were told the city didn't want it, and it would interfere with ballparks. And they were going to employ like 500 to 800 people, and most of them welders. I just wondered, whatever came of that, or why was that decision made? I know that's before, I guess, your gentleman's time, but what was the story on that?
All right, so we have two questions there. One about the company wanting to come in and build rail cars, and the other one about sales tax money and how it comes in and how it accrues. Do you want to tackle that first, Mr. Rose?
Well, I can't imagine anybody in the city telling someone that we didn't want them. I've been involved with economic development somewhat for the last 3 years. Now, in the previous 25 years, we've gone through 4 economic development directors starting with Jim Moore, Sandy Pratt, Marilyn Fever, and Mac McKnight. And very little was accomplished in that period of time. And in the last 3 years, the economic development people have done more for this city than anybody in the previous 25 years. And for the first time to my knowledge, the Economic Development Council is doing exactly what it's supposed to be. When we hired Miss Elkins 3 years ago, she was given 3 tasks: to get some new housing, to get retail, and to continue to recruit business. Well, we have a new housing developed. We have a new shops on Chisholm Trail, a $37,000 or $1 million project that will bring more retail to Chickasha. And we have 2 new businesses, manufacturers coming to Chickasha, Word Industries, which most of you've read about in the paper. And I just can't imagine anybody telling someone that we would not welcome them into Chickasha.
Mayor Ross?
I am not familiar with that situation whatsoever. And I'm sure if we had an opportunity to bring in 400 or 500 jobs, we could jump through every hoop to do so. But I will make a comment on sales tax because this was part of the earlier form. And what people need to understand is Oklahoma is the only state in the union where municipalities are solely dependent upon sales tax. I have several of my fellow councilwomen and councilmen here tonight, and it makes our jobs very difficult because it's not predictable, it's up and down, it varies by the economy, and it's really detrimental to cities. And it is a regressive tax, in my opinion. And so when we're dealing with sales tax issues, and we're talking about tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure projects, and we get no ad valorem tax, and we get no type of royalties and other things, it makes cities very difficult. I think Oklahoma should change that. I think there should be a legislative process in place to do so, but it's just not on anyone's priority to get that done. So we're the only state in the union that cities solely are dependent on sales tax.
Well, that's a good question. I'd like to touch on something Mr. Rose said. He said that we have developments here. Were you talking about Sleepy Hollow?
Yes.
How many homes have been sold out of the home creations?
Not to date, but right now we're in a slowdown. The whole housing market across the nation is slow. The busy season will be coming in April, May, June when people start to move. Right now, everything has slowed down because of the oil situation, but it will come around, and they will build smaller houses. That is, as it's platted out, they will build some smaller houses later on as they further develop that area.
Well, and another thing too is, I deliver sod for a living. We're working all over Norman, all the way as far as Tinker, Oklahoma, or Tinker Air Force Base, that farther. Home Creations builds homes there. They're not having a hard time selling houses, okay? Well, you mentioned Word Industries. Word Industries, what is their industry? What's their number one claim to fame? They're selling to the oil field, and you mentioned the oil field is down. So I'm agreeing with him. Word is coming into this town. And did we loan them money? Is that correct?
To help with the move.
To help with their move. Why didn't they do it themselves? I mean, I know that I read.
You addressed the question. Well, I mean, it's all I'm going to ask the other candidates questions.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's fine. Please just answer the gentleman's question, or your views at least on economics here in Chickasha.
Well, I think that we're putting money out for things that we shouldn't be putting our money out for.
Well, let me address that. People have this idea that there are all these businesses sitting around the country just wanting to move somewhere. And they're like, just say, take me. But that's not the way it works. These people are looking for the best place. They're looking for somebody who's willing to commit to them, and that takes money. And the money has to come from economic development. You just can't get people to come. You have to work offer them incentives to come. And right now, we're competing against Ada, Ardmore, Duncan, El Reno. All the major cities in this state have the same kind of economic development programs as we do, and most of them have much more money in their economic development. We have a 7/32 tax now. Most of them have a quarter to 1/2 cent, and many of them have a hotel motel tax on top of that. So we don't have the money to attract really big companies, and so we have to work with those that are available and are interested in coming to smaller communities.
I think economic development funds are important. That's not why companies make decisions to move to a community. I spent an enormous amount of time with the help of many others. I want to create a community where people want to live, where our children want to return. And to do that, and just look at north of what happened in Oklahoma City. When United Airlines Oklahoma City was courting United Airlines, and they had the best economic package put together, and they lost that to St. Louis. Mayor Ron Nork went to St. Louis and asked why, and the simple question was, our people did not want to live in Oklahoma City. And that's what started MAPS. That's what started the public investment in their schools. We want to compete with Norman and compete on the housing market and do all the things we want to do. We need some community. We got to build a community where people want to live. That takes pride. That takes code enforcement. That takes great schools. That takes a vibrant downtown. That takes shopping centers. We just can't focus on one issue. We need to build a community that we're proud of.
All right, I think we have another question here down front.
Hi there. On our town, I work at the college. We have a college with a little over 900 students here in Chickasha. And one thing that I've noticed with other cities in Oklahoma, whether it's Weatherford, Norman, Stillwater, is that the students there drive the economy a lot because they are involved, they spend money, they're in boards, they do everything that they can to help contribute. Now, I understand that USAO is a much smaller school, but we do have over 900 students that at 3 p.m. every Friday leave our town and do not come back till Monday morning. And whenever they take their dollars, which a lot of them have disposable income, they take it out of Chickasha. Money that we can use for revenue, for sales tax, for things that we need here. Do you think, for all the candidates, do you think we're doing enough to support the students to stay here and spend their money here in Chickasha? And if so, what are your ideas, what are your plans to make that happen?
I'll start with Mr. Shimbo.
Could you, I'm sorry. One of the problems I think we have is the housing here is kind of a little high. I mean, I don't know where some of these people are living. I could just imagine, maybe Ninnekah or somewhere in that area. But one of the things I know and I've heard this because of the oil field. Previously, I did work in the oil field, and I did see a lot of things that when you go into a town where the oil field drove the economy, prices of houses that were $400 to $600 a month were upwards of $8,000 to $1,000. So it's probably one of the reasons that people are leaving are traveling from somewhere else to here, because we don't know exactly where they are coming from. I used to work with a gentleman here in town that lived in Norman, and he came here to go to school at USAO, but his wife and he decided to move to Norman because apparently it was cheaper, he said, even to travel between Norman and here. I don't get how that works out exactly, but that's what he said. One of the things I think too, and I've noticed this is, and it's been said before here, is we do not have some of the things that some of these students would like, like we don't have live venues. There's been talk about they opened up. Somebody was wanting to open up a live venue. I guess you'd say nightclub here. They did not. I think that's part of that problem, as to why there is no. You said like 3 o'clock. After 3 o'clock, no one sticks around. I mean, you said you live in Chickasha. Where are you from originally? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm actually from United States. I'm from New Jersey.
New Jersey. So you know about nightlife, right? Okay.
Mayor Wilson.
You're exactly right. We're not doing enough for our university. We don't embrace our university. I'm so glad you talked about the 900 students, which is beginning to be record highs out there. It was kind of alluded to in the earlier forum that our college is on the way down from an enrollment standpoint. Our college is on the way up. The problem is we can't find enough housing for all our students. So I think what we have to do as a community is build venues and quality of life issues where our students can participate in our community. I think we're starting to do that by the revitalization of downtown. We'll certainly see some of those quality of life issues in terms of restaurants and other things in our new shopping center. But we are not doing, we got to do a better job to provide entertainment and other venues for our students at the college so they don't drive out of town to Norman and other places to spend sales tax money. We're working on it.
Mr. Rose.
Well, you know, I taught at a university for 3 years, and I visited a lot of universities in the past. And this is the only university I've ever seen where there's not a Pizza Hut, a Burger King, McDonald's, or something close to the school where the students can get something else. And if those were available, we probably would have 1,200 students instead of 900 out here, and they wouldn't all be leaving home to go home on Friday night. So I think we need to do something around that area to enhance it for the students and make things more available to them to help them.
Can I make a follow-up to that? I have noticed something too, and this totally is not, I've noticed we have a lot of students from other countries that come here too as well. And I think a lot of it is because we have soccer. And I've noticed a lot of these students that come from other countries are countries that value soccer more than we do. Obviously, you know, we're a baseball and football state, you know, or country, sorry. And so I think that may have a little bit to do with it as well. You know, it's maybe when they're looking at the information about Chickasha, whatever they put in there, like, you know, Zulu or Zillow tells them the closest thing that has a lower rate for where they're to live, or lower cost of living, is these other areas as well. So.
And by the way, Adam, this is economic development. When you look at economic development, one of the top factors are, do you have a four-year university in your community, or do you have access to a four-year university? And so we have to embrace this academic, prestigious university in our state, and we as a community got to do a better job of finding more things for our students to do. I totally agree. It's all economic development.
All right, do you have another question?
I'm going to take issue with that. I was on this council for 10 years. For 10 years that I was on this council, we reached out to the university. It wasn't until change of administration that an olive branch was handed back. And it started when USAO were the national champions in basketball. And since then, I know of several olive branches that have been extended. Yes, I didn't go to school here. I attended Kansas State University. This place is dead. If you're young and want to go out and do something, I think we need a live music venue. I don't know where we're going to put a fast food restaurant unless we cram it into your union, because you have residents all around. Dr. Fever's done an excellent job of building rapport with the city. But prior to relatively recently, the university was not reciprocal with the city. And I don't know if that came back when they were OCLA and almost went out of business, and it became USAO. Then Dr. Fever took over, and it has grown exponentially. The university is highly rated in value and quality of your education. Be proud you're a student there. Do everything you can. Stay here after you graduate. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you for that please keep it to questions. But thank you, I appreciate your input, you've got some insight, I do appreciate that. Any other questions? Down here, down front, this is the young lady over here.
Okay, I spoke to Mayor Ross yesterday, and I was asking, when you come in from Anadarko, all you see is home of the fighting chicks. Where's USAO in there? Because I'm a USAO student, and I mean, that is something that we should be bragging about, that we have, like, one of the only liberal arts colleges in Oklahoma. But it's like we're not even recognized. And like everybody said, you know, we have all kinds of people coming from other countries that get scouted to come there and get scholarships to come there. And I don't understand why we can't get that out there, because we are not represented. And if we were, maybe more students would come. I thought there was like 1,100 last time, actually. Yeah. But I mean, they have a high rate of graduation here, you know. They also have a high rate of people dropping out. But if we could just like get the city and the university working together, I think it would be a lot better for not just USAO, but for the entire town. But my question is, how can we do that?
Mayor Ross?
We had a chance to talk yesterday, and I think my answer was you're exactly right. Dr. Phoebe and I meet routinely, and we try to talk about ways we can collaborate together. But I think we need to, I think it's an excellent idea, and I hope you come to City Council, like I suggested yesterday, and under public comment, make that recommendation. And when you do that, that's in front of the press and city manager and other council people, and I hope we can act upon that. It's a great suggestion.
Mr. Shambo?
There are quite a few business owners in this town. That's probably one of the best ways to do it too. You go in Norman, how many things say, you know, sooner this, you know, sooner that. That's probably one of the quickest ways. I mean, it's seriously. Other than, like you said, we should represent that we are proud that they're here. Because I've talked to some of these students, and I'm amazed.
Mr. Rhodes?
I'm done.
Mr. Rhodes, any input or you don't? Okay. Next question. Yes, down here.
I've got a question. Why is the city council meetings not published when they're going to be and what happens at each one?
Can I answer that?
Go for it.
And I may shock some people here. They are posted on their website, and it says the 1st and 3rd, correct? Monday? And it has the times. But I'm agreeing with you there too. There is a lot of people that do not know anything about our local government. And I think that that's something that needs to be worked on. And I think that's...
And there's been a lot of good meetings.
And one of the things that really...
I need to address that. The city council meets on the 1st and 3rd Monday of every month, ever since I've been involved at 5:30. And the city agendas are posted, I believe, 3 days ahead of time prior to the meeting. We can't meet as a council without public notice. So anytime the council is together, we have to have a public notice of where the meeting is, and an agenda has to be put forth, set place. Please come to city council meetings. Again, one of the very first parts of our city council means there's public input. And that's a great way to communicate your ideas, concerns, or wants. We invite people to city council. We want people to be there. It's also on Channel 3 every Monday and Wednesday.
Channel 3 is on that. But I've been up there and I said, no, we've already held it behind closed doors and not out in open.
It's just not accurate. We're there, and the media will endorse that. We're there. Now, sometimes we have to go to executive session and go behind closed doors, but that's all part of the agenda that's posted. I promise you, there's people in front here who are responsible for that action, and they do a very nice job.
It needs to be publicized in the paper, what happened.
It is. In the classified.
In the community section.
Public notification as far as when the council meeting will be, and you have a story every Tuesday after following council meeting.
Subscribe. Any other questions?
Well, I'm going to change the subject to water. What I want to know is what plans you have, if any, for the alleys that are not used any longer by the garbage and trash picker-uppers. I mean, we've got, now main streets now have garbage bins out on them periodically, or we have old chairs, old furniture that isn't going to be picked up for 3 to 4 weeks out on our parkings. And you look down the street some mornings and you don't know whether you're looking at an old alley or not. And I volunteer because they would carry the old one away. This is ugly. You're concerned with the appearance of Chickasha, and so am I. But I'm seeing garbage bins on the street. My alley, I don't know what it's for. Is there any plan to ease that back into my property? Half of it?
Mr. Rose on the image in Chickasha.
What are the plans? There must be some.
I don't know why the alleys have not, why the plan was made to put everything on the street.
I can't hear you.
I don't know why the plan was made that everything would be put on the street instead of the alleys. I know that we've had a major problem or a major situation where the city was concreting the entrances to alleys, and I never understood that since we weren't using the alleys. So I'll have to defer to the mayor to explain that.
But if there's any thought of its use, have they any practical applications now?
Mayor Ross.
I was really hoping you answered me a question about water. And I'm serious, I'd love to get together with you and talk about water. You had some great points, but I also want you to know what we're doing to try to correct our water issue. So after the meeting or sometime, I'd love to get together with you. But what the fact of the matter is, today, we have 47 less employees working for the city today than we did in 2009. And we had to find a way to automate our trash pickup. And our alleys were not conducive to do that. Some were not wide enough. Some had tree overhangs to do that. And we're just kind of following what most cities have already done in terms of the polycart issues and things like that. And what you just want to add is we're one of the first cities to add the 30-gallon recycle bins. And I had the opportunity to go to Tulsa. We were the #1 recycling community in the state. So we've done a good job at that. We need to do a better job to make sure people roll those bins out from front of their house to the middle of their house and the back of the house, because it doesn't look very good. You're exactly correct. But we really did that because we couldn't find the personnel to do our garbage pickup anymore. And we had to automate our system, and that's why we have sanitation in front of our homes, like most cities do across the United States. But please come, let's talk about water some other time. I'd love to do that.
Water questions will come.
Say again?
Mayor, here, I thought that was a very good question. When?
You want to talk about this?
We can bring it. Do you have anything to say about her previous question, Mr. Shanko, or do you want to move on to water?
No, I think Mayor Ross handled that. Because I agree, as a truck driver, it's kind of a pain getting in and out of alleys.
My conclusion in the matter is that it simply supports my going out now and buying filters for my house and give up on the city. That's it.
Mayor Ross, would you like to address some water concerns?
I'd love to, and you're not going to like part of my answer.
I think your question was when, if that kind of direction.
I don't know of a city, when I go to mayor meetings, I don't know of a city who's not continually working on their water problems. Because we have 100-year-old pipes And I'd love to sit down with you. We have a master plan for our city. We have a new charcoal filter system put in place. We're putting $10 million into our water system just this year. But it's a decade problem. It's going to take tens of millions of dollars. But this council, and there's council people here, have taken this problem on. It's one of the first councils to do so. We have a master plan in place to address our water issue. Someone spoke about Fort Cobb earlier. We spent $1.2 million extending our pipe into a deeper part of the lake so we get better quality of water. The problem is when we buy our water at Fort Cobb and it gets to our water treatment plant, we lose 27% of it because of leaky pipes. So it's an ongoing problem. It's what every city deals with. I would love to sit down with you to show you all the things we're doing, trying to improve it. I think our taste is going to get better, and our quality of water is going to get better. We've done a multitude of things to do that. So please, let's get together, and I'd love to talk about it.
Mr. Shimbo.
I think you, as well as a lot of people in here, have the same question. What are we doing for the water system? We have a vehicle for it. It's the internet. We have a website. I don't ever see any kind of progress report put on that website as to what we're doing as far as that. I do for other things, but I think that's probably what needs to happen in the city is we have these questions, we want some answers. I think that's why a lot of us are up here running and in various office positions. We have questions, we want answers. And I've
There is no answer available as a plan for the always. I think they should be considered seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are beginning to be, and will continue on to be shortcuts. And cars going at a speed not under control by law.
I promise you, we're not going to be a Flint, Michigan. We're not going to be a Flint, Michigan. We're going to have safe, quality water and not take shortcuts like some communities have. I promise you that.
All right, we need to get back to the direction here. I want to give a chance for Mr. Rose to speak about the water issues and sort of when and address some of those concerns.
Well, I'm not privy to all the information that the mayor has, but I can tell you that water is a little better than it was when I was a youngster. Because if you went to Anadarko and you went into a restaurant or a service station and you had to use a bathroom, they had a sign that said, "Please flush, Chickasha needs the water."
Well, we do share the same line, so I don't know how to answer that. We do share the same line.
My father-in-law used to tell me that it's safer to drink the water in Mexico.
Tough act to follow. Okay, we have lived in Chickasha all of 18 months, and we're originally from I'm originally from a small suburb of Chickasha called Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. First, when you talk, just a little lead up to the question. We chose to be in Chickasha. We were not born here. We don't have 100 years of history here. We looked for a town, and we settled in Chickasha. The college influenced us. It's a beautiful campus. The fact that when we drove down 44, we saw the fields, and my first reaction was, they're investing in their kids. I like that. We have everything from kindergarten to 12 to 2-year to 4-year all in one school, one system, one town. And I wonder, are we really going to pull in people who want to build railroad cars, or are we a bedroom community? And do we need to let people know exactly how good we are? And do we need to start developing the housing stock and also get rid of the derelict housing stock, so that this is the bedroom community for Norman, for OKC, for Lawton, for El Reno. We are a junction that was the other thing that brought us here. We are a junction between major destinations. Yeah. And I wonder if that's not our future, and that's the question I ask. Is our future being the bedroom city for the more developed areas, and do we need to start investing economic development money in explaining to people why this should be their residence, not why they should move their car chassis plant here?
Mr. Rose on Chickasha becoming more of a bedroom community.
Well, I think the city has taken over the tourism program to trying to notify and alert other cities around Chickasha what's going on here. And they've now hired a tourism director to start promoting Chickasha more than it has been in the past. I think that with that effort, one of the things we should be doing is we should send things to the Duncan Banner, the Lawton Constitution, the El Reno Gazette, and all these different papers, and every week we should be telling them what's going on in Chickasha, and even the Daily Oklahoman. We don't do enough to promote ourselves, and I think that's one thing that our tourism department should really get active on, is notifying other communities what's going on. The Fort Sill has a Cannoneer newspaper, and I'm sure a lot of those young soldiers out there would love to come here for a rodeo or any kind of an event out at the fairgrounds. And so we just need to start promoting ourselves more, which we've not done in the past.
Mayor Ross.
I want to buy you lunch, because you just articulated a major part of my vision for Chickasha.
Okay, but no quick pro.
No quick pro. So I'm going to tell you why. I measure, we're an agriculture manufacturing town, and mostly blue collar. There's nothing wrong with that. But I judge our town, I think the metric for the mayor should be raising the median household income. A rising tide raises all ships. And I think a way we can do that is do the beautification, the quality of life projects, and things like that, where we compete with Norman and other type venues for that type of people who want to live in these small communities. So I applaud your vision very much. Oklahoma City, prior to this recession, with the oil, had the second most private job creation behind Austin, Texas. We're in a perfect position to capitalize on that topic. So all the things I talked about earlier about a vision for Chickasha and restaurants and cleaning it up and all the things we got to do, I want to create a community, because we're going to be a bedroom community of Oklahoma City. The growth is coming too far south. The question is, are we going to be able to compete for those types of individuals that other communities are already taking those initiatives to do?
Mr. Shambo?
Well, I'm agreeing with you as for the reason you moved here. That's the reason my wife and I chose this spot when we had our son. It's a great small town, and I think we're already there, as you were talking about, as a bedroom community. Medicine Park's done really well with it. I don't know if you've ever been down there. If you haven't, you should give it a shot. It's a pretty nice little spot. And they've got certain things that they're capitalizing on. And I think that's what we need to do. And we've got places here that, that make shirts. We have small individual businesses. We've got some restaurants that are here. I know that a lot of these smaller places, like Wisconsin, for instance, I'd seen a show about a guy that made hamburgers in a little bitty building. And he was on one of these shows about, his hamburgers, and I talk to people, that like me, that are big guys that like to eat. And I've talked to them about this guy's hamburgers. Stuff like that's what I think we need to capitalize on. What we have J&W Grill and some of these other little restaurants here in town. I think that's one of the things we need to capitalize on.
Great, thank you. Any more questions?
Okay, now I know that this is an issue that gets people hot and cold. I know that Okay, Mr. Ross, you are about beautification of the city to make it more attractive to other people. And a lot of people that live here, I gotta tell you, they're upset that they can't park on their own property because they do not have an existing driveway. Or there's a lot of people that rent in this town. Landlords are forthcoming with putting a driveway in. People can't afford it. But on the other hand, streets are narrow. There's no curbs. If there is a curb, they can't park on it. That's something that I just recently heard about. So there's got to be some kind of an alternative solution to say, okay, we want our city, we want pride in our city. Absolutely. Absolutely. I support Chickasha and having pride in the city. Absolutely. But there's got to be a solution to say, okay, don't park in the middle of your yard. Park to the side of your house, to the side. Some kind of solution other than just writing tickets and saying, you don't have a driveway, you can't park on the grass, but then the cops are going to give them a ticket for parking on the street, the city's going to give them a ticket for parking on the grass. What's up with that?
Mayor Ross?
I appreciate you saying the word pride. We're competing with these other cities that this gentleman pointed out earlier, and every one of those cities has, you can't park on grass in front of your homes and things like that. We had to put those types of ordinances in place to complete and to beautify our city. Now, I will tell you this. If you have a situation where your street is not wide enough, or you have a hardship situation, all you have to do is come down and talk to city staff. We grant variances along those lines and do that. We're not going to penalize someone for something they can't do. But that's a very small percent of our people that affects. The vast majority of our people have proper driveways, proper ways they can put their vehicles. And so for us to compete with other communities, to attract people to our community, to create a place where people want to live, we feel like we need to do that.
Okay, and I think a lot of people are not aware that they can do the solution that you're just talking.
Sure, I have the assistant city manager here tonight and other people. Now, it's a case-by-case basis.
Right, because when I owned
Right.
the property, I did that. I
Right.
called them and they did work.
Right. But if they had the parking facilities available, yes, they're going to have to use it.
Mr. Rose, on parking and city code enforcement?
Well, if you look at the city of Chickasha, and if you go from Douglas on the east side over to 21st Street, and most people don't know where Douglas is, or Meadows on the north, down to Grand Avenue, that's the central part of Chickasha, and that's the way it was until we started growing on the outside. And if you look at the houses, about 10% of the houses in Chickasha were upper scale and been maintained well, and a few random houses have been built over the years, but very few houses there are 2 or 3 in a row. Most of the houses are white frame buildings that were built prior to World War II, and the rest were built right after World War II. And they're occupied by 2 kinds of people, renters and senior citizens.
Sure.
Now, the renters, the owners of those properties, they're making a profit, and they can recoup their money over a period of time if they make the driveway for the property, and that's their responsibility. But these senior citizens all live on fixed incomes. They live month to month. And they can't afford to put in a new driveway. And if they have some damage to their house, their carport gets hit by a tree, or a major water problem in their yard, and they have to replace the meters, they have to go get a permit to do that. And to get the permit, they have to put in a driveway. And they just can't. It's an economic crisis for these people. Now, the city has a program, or they did have, where they were going around concreting alleys. If the city can afford to concrete alleys, I think they could set up some kind of a grant program to help these senior citizens who cannot afford to put in a driveway, and when that crisis arises, you can help those people out and keep them from getting in a worse situation on a month-to-month basis where they're just barely getting by.
And Mr. Chambon on
Well, that is a huge topic. Last like it was last year or the year before last, there was a huge deal. There's even a petition circulating to change that law. I know that, and I've heard this over and over about, we're trying to compete with another city. Okay. My mother-in-law lives in a town called Sequim, Washington. It's the second largest retirement community in the area that she lives in. Her driveway is gravel. She has a $300,000 home that she just built the last couple of years. The city she lives in, Sequim, Washington, is one of the tightest communities when it comes to regulations. They regulate down to how many gallons a day she could use of water. Okay? So it's not just because we're competing. It doesn't look right, is what my opinion is of the situation, and that's why they went and did what they did. Because if that was the case, we would have left the people that did not have concrete driveways alone in the situation. I get and I see it whenever you build a brand new house. Okay, I see that point. But again, there are people that, you've said it already once, that either rent, or as Mr. Rose said, is on a fixed income. They can't just go and build. And I've heard some crazy stories about people that have told me what they had to do because they tried to build something in their house and the city gave them the rigmarole. They ended up coming out okay, I guess, on the end, but I've heard stories that people have had to build a driveway because the city said no. So.
All right, thank you. We've got two people who had questions. You had one asked by the mayor, so I'm going to go to this man first. I don't believe he's asked the mayor a question yet. We'll go back to you.
Yeah, this is kind of a follow-up to the prior question that I had before the question was asked. The city has ordinances against parking on the wrong side of the street, against parking on your front lawn, against there's many streets that should only have one side parking that aren't that way. A lot of the numbered streets between Chickasha Avenue and Grand Avenue should only have parking on one side of the street. But yet, when you talk to the police, unless there's a complaint, they won't ticket people that are parked illegally. And I don't understand why, if we're going to have a ordinance, we can't enforce it. So would you be in favor of telling the police department that they need to enforce the parking that we have? And also, would you be in favor of putting an ordinance in saying you can't put your garbage out more than 24 hours before it's going to be picked up, and it has to be brought back 24 hours after it's picked up?
Mr. Chambon on more strict code enforcement and then quick.
On the parking issue, it's the law. It should be enforced, plain and simple. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I mean, there are circumstances for every, we've seen that. And the 24-hour thing, are you aware of our bulk pickup situation? I mean, and I'm not trying to be flip, I'm just saying. And I get that we've had this issue with limbs, but I've driven by lots of houses lately that have stacks of limbs this high. This is a bulk situation. It's I think it's third day or something, like every third pickup is supposed to be a bulk day or something of that nature. I don't really know because I don't use it very often. But there used to be a neighbor of mine that had for at least a month and a half. Finally, the only reason it got picked up is because one of the other neighbors called the city and said, hey, this guy's he's piled a bunch of stuff up out here. It needs to be picked up. And I know that, I'm pretty sure that I had seen code enforcement going by because they were working on the place across the street. So, I mean, I don't think that would be an enforceable rule in here because, for one, I don't think we have the amount of code enforcement or officers either.
I consider that separate.
But that's...
Do let you kids have input on this, and then we'll unfortunately move on to closing statement.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Rose, on stricter code enforcement?
Well, it's a law, And until the law's changed, the police are tasked to enforce the law. Good law or bad law, the citizens have, if they don't like it, the citizens are the ones who can express their concerns and try to get the law changed. But as the law in the book, it must be enforced.
All those parameters you talked about are in place in our ordinances. And if you have someone who's not being compliant, help us. The assistant city manager is sitting right there in front of you. Tap her on the shoulder. Notify the city. When people notify us of these issues, I can tell you the vast majority of the time, the city employees deal with these issues and take care of them. So if you see code violations that you want to be addressed, just please notify us and we'll address them.
All right, and we'll move on to some closing statements now. We're getting a little bit close to 8 o'clock, and we'll just go ahead and start with Mayor Lawson, since you just work our way down.
My roots are here. I raised my family here. And I think if you look at the city where it was 6-8 years ago, I think we've made noticeable progress. We're trying to do things to beautify our city. We're putting tens of millions of dollars into infrastructure. We're trying to build retail development, housing development. We're trying to bring higher paying jobs to our community. So I will continue to work hard for this city. I dedicate an enormous amount of hours in these projects. I'm proud to serve and do so. I want to give back to this community. So I just say let's continue the progress and continue to move our city forward.
Mr. Rose.
I'm running for mayor. I believe in the progress. I think we've made giant steps forward. But we've also made some horrendous mistakes, and I think some of those be looked at again and reviewed. I think our budget is out of line with what it should be, and I'm running for mayor. I would appreciate your vote, and the question is whether you vote for me or my opponents. The important thing is that you get out and vote, because voting is the only way. That's the only way you can demonstrate your concern or your satisfaction with how your city, state, or federal government is performing. And that's your vote. And it doesn't matter who you vote for, just get out and vote. And God bless the United States of America.
One of the reasons I'm running, sorry. You got me confused there a little bit. I believe in one thing only. If you see something wrong, you need to help fix it. And I've seen a few things wrong. I've seen some good things, but I've seen a lot wrong. And I want to leave my children something better than what I've seen. I, along with a lot of people here, are upset at some of the excuses that we see that we're getting, some of the answers we're not getting. As your mayor, that's one thing I will guarantee you. If I see something that needs to be addressed, you'll know about it. I will make sure that you know about it. And like Mr. Rose said, go out and vote on the 1st. I prefer you vote for me, but go out and vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our mayoral candidates, and again to our Ward 1 candidates. Thank all of you for coming out here tonight. I think as quick as I put this together, as we put this together, this was a pretty successful event. If you missed it the first time around, I'm Adem Troxtell with the Express Star. Go look at the Express Star. We'll have a lot more election coverage until it's March 1st. And also, thank you to Cool 105.5. They do fantastic work as well. Dennis Line and George Plummer, fantastic newsmen. Turn on the radio, give a listen to them. Thank you very much, guys.